Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith. Later in the show, we'll hear about community strengthening and connections happening at the Odenong powwow with founder and man of many hats, Justin Beatty. And we'll see the tip-to-tail fiber operation happening at Growing a Bunch Farm with Lisa Fortin, and that sheep aren't the only things she's growing up in Ashfield. But first, it's hard to keep up with all the issues leaking out of Capitol Hill these days, what with an unsanctioned war going on and another one potentially on the horizon, and the constant question of whether or not the Constitution is currently in crisis. Luckily for all of us, and the congressman for the 2nd District, there's a long weekend ahead.
Got any big Memorial Day plans?
Well, we're trying to figure out when we're getting out of here. I mean, I was going to go to the Cape for a couple of days, and then that's when we were supposed to get out last night, and now we're waiting for this stupid reconciliation bill, and the Senate hasn't even begun to consider it yet. So that means we're not leaving today, and it's a possibility we might be here on Saturday. But
the beachcomber is open.
So,
you got to tell them the beachcomber is officially open as of today.
Well,
it's one of my favorite places on earth. Time for our weekly check-in with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Congressman Jim McGovern, in a segment I like to call McGoverning with McGovern. Another of your former colleagues, who is also a big fan of the beach and spent the last days of his life in beautiful Ogunquit, Maine, Barney Frank, passed away this week. This is from NPR yesterday. Former Congressman Barney Frank, the liberal icon and gay rights pioneer from Massachusetts, has died. Frank was 86 and passed away at his home in Ogunquit, where he'd been receiving hospice care for congestive heart failure. We spoke a few weeks ago about him as he entered hospice. I know he was your friend. How will you remember Congressman Barney Frank, and how do you think Americans will remember him?
First of all, I'm saddened by the news. I actually talked to him last week, and he sounded pretty good. And so I was a little bit shocked that it came so soon. But look, Barney was my friend. He was brilliant. He was funny. He was effective, and he was the best debater I've ever seen. And he understood that debate is about trying to persuade people. And nowadays, debates are about shouting at each other, and nobody listens. But when he was on the floor, people listened. People paid attention, and he changed minds. He opened people's minds to a lot of issues. I mean, he was a fighter for not only gay rights, but all human rights and workers' rights, and he delivered for his district. Again, probably one of the best members of Congress that has ever served.
There will be some new members in Congress, given what's gone on with primaries this week. There were two major victories in favor of Donald Trump against his own party. Earlier this week, Bill Cassidy lost his primary in Louisiana. And just the other day, an outspoken GOP Trump critic, at least when it comes to the Epstein files, Tom Massey, lost his primary in Kentucky. Are you surprised that Trump still has this much power and popularity, given what polls have suggested?
Well, again, the people that participated in these primaries were only Republicans. So no independents and no Democrats were allowed to participate in those primaries. And in Massey's case, I mean, they invested, $32 million in that House race? I mean, imagine that, $32 million in one congressional race. And Massey came within 10,000 votes of prevailing. It reminds me of a cult, that people are behaving and voting irrationally. I mean, voting for a personality in the White House and not what's in their own interest. I mean, say what you want about Massey, but I mean, he voted with Trump most of the time.
He even brought out old videos of endorsements from Trump that Trump was upset by to try to just show his Trump bona fides.
And his crime was he wanted the Epstein files released, and his other crime was that he believed that when it came to issues of war, that Congress ought to debate it and vote on it. He thought that was what the Constitution demanded. And for those two sins, Trump went all out against him. I worked with Massey, and we don't agree on everything, but he was a guy you could work with. He voted his principles. I don't know. I think it's bad for the institution when people like that, are ousted for really no good reason. And Senator Cassidy, I've worked with him on a number of things. He's a decent guy. He rightly thought that Donald Trump did not deserve to be in office anymore. But when Trump got elected again, I mean, he was a loyal soldier for Donald Trump, and he was rewarded by being targeted because Trump can't get over past grievances.
And Cassidy's past grievance was he voted for the impeachment years ago at this point.
Yeah. Correct, yeah. I always thought politics was about addition, and Donald Trump has a different view. It's about subtraction, and it's about vengeance. I think that's a lousy way to do politics. It's also a lousy way to live your life.
I know that the House is set to pick up a war powers resolution yet again this afternoon. Do you think with Tom Massey now being rejected by Trump that this could sway the balance of this war powers resolution?
Well, Massey has always sided with us on the War Powers Act. I mean, he's been a vocal critic of the war in Iran, and I've appreciated that. The question is whether or not we pick up anybody that we didn't get in the past. And I think if we had a full debate, if Congress did its job, we wouldn't have gone to war in Iran. And now he's talking about going to war in Cuba. This guy's unhinged, and the American people are paying the price. Costs are going up. Prices are going up on everything because of his tariffs and because of these reckless wars that he wants to get us in.
Well, let's talk about Cuba then. What's the conversation in Congress right now? There were criminal charges levied against Raul Castro just yesterday. Some are saying that this is in anticipation of another likely invasion where we could do something in Cuba like we've done in Venezuela and in Iran. What are you hearing in Congress about this?
Well, first of all, Raul Castro is 94 years old, right, as we speak. But look, I've been a critic of U.S. policy my entire life. I mean, it's a relic from the Cold War, and it has done nothing to help the Cuban people, and it has done nothing to serve the interests of the United States. And I think the current policy that we're pursuing, tightening up the economic blockade we have on the island, including blocking shipments of energy to Cuba, I think is criminal. And people in Cuba are suffering. We are told of power outages where, hospitals have lost power, where people on ventilators have died. Even if you have some money, there's no place to buy food anymore. And now Trump is talking about invading the island. Let me tell you, I think it's fair to say that the Cuban people are not happy with their government right now. But I don't think the Cuban people are looking for Marco Rubio, who's never set foot on the island, or Donald Trump to dictate what comes next. To abruptly go to war in Cuba without even debating it, without even talking about the pros and cons and what are the possible things that go wrong, again, is reckless. I mean, Donald Trump, remember, told us that the war in Iran would last a couple of days. Now, months later, here we are. We're still involved in Iran, and we've spent tens of billions of dollars on that war. The Cuban people fought a revolution in part because they were sick of the Batista government that the United States supported all these years. And I think the Cuban people know that a lot of their hardships is directly related to U.S. policy. So I'm not sure that they're going to rise up and welcome Donald Trump with open arms. In fact, as we speak, friends of mine on the island are telling me that they're already preparing for a possible U.S. invasion and how they're going to respond. So this is a dumb idea. You know what? Let's lift the embargo. Let's normalize relations with Cuba, and let's try a different tack.
Well, if the War Powers resolution scheduled for this afternoon passes in regards to Iran, maybe there's momentum to say that you could pass in advance of an invasion of Cuba, a War Powers resolution, as is supposed to happen when it comes to funding for wars like this. Is that a possibility?
I hope we'll give people pause. I mean, one of the problems on Cuba is we have a very right-wing Miami, South Florida delegation who have this dream they can go back and take over the island. They're pushing Donald Trump forward on this, which is really unfortunate. And I don't know how anybody who says that they care about human rights could try to cheer Donald Trump on as he wants to increase misery for the Cuban people. I think it's an outrageous and really stupid and dumb thing to do.
Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, McGoverning with McGovern, another big Trump victory this week. Finally, we have reparations in this country, but it's not the reparations that you might think about. And this one could potentially, according to some constitutional scholars, violate two constitutional amendments at the same time. Thanks to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, and those constitutional amendments would be Section 4 of the 14th Amendment, prohibiting the U.S. government from paying debts or obligations incurred in the aid of insurrection or rebellion, as well as the Emoluments Clause. What are your thoughts on this $1.8 billion so-called slush fund?
Just when you think you can't get any more outraged, he does something like this. $1.8 billion, not to lower people's gas prices, not to help lower the cost of food, not to invest in rebuilding our cities or helping create more jobs. $1.8 billion to basically reward the convicted felons who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. I was here that day. I saw what happened that day. These people were brought before a court of law. Their case was heard, and juries convicted them. And then Donald Trump pardoned them after they went to jail. And now he wants to pay them? I've never heard of anything so outrageous. I believe that there's constitutional issues here, but in this administration, they just seem to ignore that, and the courts seem to, always, be in their back pocket. But I remember when we tried to get a compensation fund for the people who were victims on 9/11. And it was like pulling teeth from Republicans to get them to go along with that. It took an unbelievably long time. And yet with this, to compensate, to reward convicted felons, I mean, in a nanosecond, no congressional oversight hearings, nothing, there it goes. And I know there's some pushback because I know that some Senate Republicans now are now talking about, trying to maybe put some constraints on this fund as they're dealing with this budget bill that is supposed to be up over there today. But I had an amendment in the Rules Committee to end this, to stop this fund, and every single Republican voted against me. So at least in the House, the cult is still alive and well. But I'm sick to my stomach when I think about the people who nearly destroyed this Capitol, who tried to kill members of Congress, who viciously beat police officers, that they're going to get not only a pardon, but they're going to get a financial reward. I mean, it's disgusting.
Got a listener question for you, Congressman McGovern, from Jennifer Scarlott of Northampton River Valley for Palestine, asking Congressman McGovern, why are you not a co-sponsor of Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib's Resolution 1289 recognizing the ongoing Nakba and Palestinian refugee rights? May 15th was the 78th anniversary of the Nakba, the catastrophe, when 750,000 Palestinians were murdered or forced to permanently flee their homes by the Israelis in 1948. The Nakba, as Representative Tlaib points out, has never ended. Today, apartheid Israel, partnered by the U.S., is carrying out a gruesome genocide in Gaza and relentless ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. Please explain why you're not a co-sponsor of Representative Tlaib's resolution, which she reintroduced on May 14th. Thank you, Jennifer Scarlott, Northampton River Valley for Palestine.
Yeah, well, Jennifer, with all due respect, I didn't even know she reintroduced it. I don't know whether she sent out a dear colleague asking for co-sponsors or not, to be honest with you. I'm happy to look into it, but my record in defending the rights of Palestinians, I think, has been pretty clear. And so I will look into it, but I didn't know she reintroduced it.
You, last weekend, Congressman, went to Alabama, to Selma, to Montgomery, where your friend and colleague, the late John Lewis, made some of his good trouble. You marched at the Alabama State Capitol building in defense of the Voting Rights Act. Tell us about that experience.
I went to Selma and I went to Montgomery and appeared at a number of press conferences and rallies to try to push back against this bigoted redistricting plan that Trump and the Republicans are putting into place. And I attended a mass at a service at a black church in Selma, and this elderly minister who gave an incredible speech. When it was all over with, I went up and I thanked him, and he turned to me and he said, "Look, I fought these battles in the 1960s. I thought we had won these battles. I thought we were aiming at making even more progress, but now we're fighting the old battles again, and we're going backwards, and I can't believe it, and I can't believe it either." You know, I walked over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which I did with my friend John Lewis. I mean, in 1965, he nearly was beaten to death by Alabama state troopers marching for voting rights. They ultimately successfully went over the bridge with Martin Luther King, but that paved the way for the Voting Rights Act. I mean, what the hell's going on in this country? There is a concerted effort to eliminate every congressional district that is represented by a black man or a woman in Congress. They just eliminated Congressman Jim Clyburn's district in South Carolina. People need to be outraged. And part of what the message in Alabama was, look, we're not here just to bitch and to complain. You know, we need to build this movement. And we need to be appealing to people who, quite frankly, may not have always voted with us in the past, because what's at stake right now is our democracy and whether or not there can be districts where people can have fair representation. And I'm going to go to other states to participate in voter registration rallies. We have to be engaged like never before. And I get it. I mean, I've had a number of people say to me, I'm just so tired. I can't stand listening to the news. I'm overwhelmed. I feel powerless. That is a tactic. That is a deliberate tactic of this administration to make you feel like you don't matter and you have no power, and then maybe you won't even vote. We need to combat that. Again, I'm ashamed at my country right now. I'm ashamed at what's happening. There needs to be greater outrage, but not just outrage, but action. Registering people to vote. I mean, let's learn from the civil rights movement. Let's learn from the giants who fought for civil rights in this country. Learn from their tactics in terms of getting people not only motivated to vote, but getting more people registered to vote.
Congressman Jim McGovern, what's giving you hope this week?
Well, this is a tough week for hope. I will tell you, but I will go back to Selma. Going back to that elderly minister again, who's been through so much and has seen so much, and who you could forgive if he said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. But he was there. He was walking with a cane, continuing to march. The march is not over, he said to me. The march is not over. If he's got to persevere, if he's going to go forward, then you know what? I need to follow his example. We all do.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts joins us every Thursday for McGoverning with McGovern. If you've got a question for the Congressman, send it to me, thefab413@nepm.org. I'm happy to ask it. Thanks so much, Congressman. I hope you get to the Cape.
Yeah, I hope so, too. All the best.
Coming up, sheep, wool, natural dyes, and skills for your littles as we explore growing a bunch farm up in Ashfield. And next, celebrating the many peoples who populated this land for millennia before Western civilization even knew the Americas were a thing, and learning how Indigenous folks are very much a part of the present right here in Western Mass at the Odenong Powwow with founder Justin Beatty. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
The 6th annual Odenong Powwow is this Saturday and Sunday, May 23rd and 24th in the gymnasium at Amherst Pelham Regional High School. The Odenong Powwow is free and open to the public.
And we are joined once again by the founder and producer of the Odenong Powwow, Justin Beatty. Justin is a multidisciplinary artist of Ojibwe, Saponi, and African-American descent. He's got a Bachelor's of Arts from the University of Massachusetts with a concentration in Indigenous policy, culture, and art, a self-created interdisciplinary curriculum through the University Without Walls degree program. It's fun how many other places we go where we run into your artwork in a gallery, etc. And now you have once again brought the Odenong Powwow back to Amherst Pelham Regional High School. Thanks for joining us again, Justin.
Thank you both for having me. It's always great to see you just in general, but nice to be here with you.
I know. Before we started on the air here, having a deep philosophical conversation about the nature of humanity and AI and all of these things. I wanted to listen to the Justin Beatty podcast. That's what I want.
Yo, if you're doing it, A, share, and B, let us be on it.
I would love to have that. I'm actually kind of hashing out two different ones. One is just sort of like, hey, conversations with who are the people in your neighborhood.
I love that. That's our theme too, kind of.
And the other is similar, but it's Native folks in the Northeast, and just so people can get to know who they are, regular folks around the way.
I'm glad that you've spoken this into the universe. I can look forward to the release.
Yeah, me too. And part of the Odenong Powwow's vision is to bring the neighborhood together, right?
Yeah. I mean, this represents an opportunity for not only Native folks to get together and celebrate culture, but to interact with the general public so that they get a sense of like who we are, what do we do, how do we see ourselves, and to learn. To actually be able to be in a space where you can have the conversations, where you can ask somebody, hey, I've heard this thing, is that true? Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation over the years that's come, whether it's through the education system or just general society, thinking things that sound cool that might not be true. People walk around with less than stellar information about who Native folks are. And so when you come to the powwow, you get to hear people discussing things. You get to hear about different nations. You get to try food. You get to see clothing. There's vendors with all kinds of stuff. And it really represents that bridging of gaps about each other. And Native folks get to learn about non-Native folks too. Like, who are the people that are going to show up? Who are the people that are interested in knowing about us? Like, oh, wait a minute, that's my kid's teacher. Mm-hmm. Or, oh, that's the guy that I see every day when I'm walking to work, And again, have conversations, and I think there's a beauty in that. Because we are in a time where I feel like people are not always comfortable reaching across these lines in order to have conversations about where are my own gaps in knowledge.
Yeah.
And like in a world where those lines are being drawn more constantly and more firmly between cultures in a way that at least in principle and on paper, America was not established under.
Right. But, I think when we are actually given the opportunity to sit and be humans with each other, and we can have a conversation where it's discussed, this is the chance for us to talk and ask the difficult questions. When people feel safe to do that, that's where the progress actually happens.
I think so, too. Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, with the advent of social media, you see it all the time. People are afraid of being caught on camera or on a hot mic and something's taken out of context and blown up, and then, all these unfortunate things can happen. But what we try to do with the powwow is create that space where folks can come with their questions. And, I work as a cultural educator, and one of the things that I try to tell folks and instill upon them when I'm giving a talk or whatever is like, the things you don't know are not necessarily your fault. You've been purposely misinformed. So here's the chance to ask the questions. I'm not going to make anybody feel stupid if I can avoid it, because that doesn't help. You don't know what you don't know. And if I make fun of you for not knowing and I'm not teaching you, then what am I actually doing in that moment? So I try to tell folks, like, you've been misinformed. And we've all been misinformed about each other and about ourselves. Here's the space where you can ask the questions.
And that space is the Odenong Powwow. It's happening this Saturday and Sunday, May 23rd and 24th at the gym at Amherst Pelham Regional High School. And we're here with one of the founders of the Odenong Powwow, Justin Beatty.
It is important to have those spaces for people to ask questions and to hold conversations. But at the same time, there are parts of Odenong Powwow that are specifically of Indigenous folk for Indigenous folk. Is it hard to try and maintain that balance of this space where it's totally okay for you to be involved and ask questions, and trying to get people to recognize that you're a part of this, but some of this is ingrained and cultural and not necessarily for the wider public?
There are elements of it that can be difficult. Because that's not only the case for the difference between Native and non-Native folks, but that's the case within tribal nations.
Right.
Within particular clans or societies within a tribal nation where everybody doesn't have all of the information. Everybody's not privy to all of the information. With intertribal powwows, there are certain things that are kind of generally understood by Native folks about behaviors and interactions and things like that. On the other side, we try to make sure that we are consistent in telling folks when things are appropriate and not appropriate. And some of them are simple things that you might not think, like we say, if you see dancers in the circle, you can take their picture as long as the MC has said, hasn't said no photos at this time.
Right.
But if you see somebody outside and they're just walking around or whatever, and you want to take their photograph, just go up and ask them, because they may have something on their regalia, their traditional clothes that they don't want photographed, or that they just want to make it look nice and untangle their fringe or whatever. Little things like that somebody might not know. So we try to make sure that we are clear about what those things are. In the program, we kind of list some powwow etiquette, and so that way folks have an opportunity to gain some understanding around it. We have a person called an arena director. It's Hector LeBeau. He's from the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, and he's Taino. And he's a well-respected arena director and traditional dancer. The arena director is literally responsible for everything that happens in the dance area. Mm-hmm. When the arena director says, hey, don't do this, don't do that, it's not them picking on you. It's them saying, this is the established protocols and why we don't allow these things. We have the means and methods in place for the most part. There's always the outlier. Something random happens that you can't account for. That's just the nature of dealing with humans, semi-evolved simians as we are. We try, luckily we have a team of people that have been doing this for a very long time. Our MC has been around. He's a good friend of mine, Chris Newell. He's from the Passamaquoddy Nation. He's been around powwows for 40-something years, almost 50. Our head lady dancer is Anakwasi's Pocknet. She's the current Mashpee Wampanoag Powwow Princess. She's for 25-26. So she's somebody from that her community chose to have represent them. Mm-hmm. We have a young man named Justin Maddox who's stepping in to be our head man dancer. And the head dancers are people that they have to know so much about not only their style of dance, but other styles of dance so that they can guide people, right? So that they can help non-Native folks when it's time to do certain dances. They set an example for the dancers who are there that are Native dancers about what the expectation is on behavior, about what you're supposed to know. And so we have a team of people that can help guide us through those moments.
Justin Beatty from Odenong Powwow, another interesting guest that'll be there this weekend at Amherst Pelham is a James Beard award-winning chef. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So we are blessed to have Sherry Pocknett. She was the James Beard Award winner for Best Chef in the Northeast back in 2023. She's a close friend of the family. She is probably the most well-known native food vendor in New England. She has a restaurant and a booth called Sly Fox Den. She makes a fair amount of traditional native foods. She's Mashpee Wampanoag, so people from the Cape, the people that first encountered the Pilgrims. And she makes not only traditional foods, but combines traditional foods with modern flares around certain things. But she's one of those people that if you go to, like let's say you go to any event and there's a certain food booth that there's always the line.
Yeah, that's the line.
Sherry's booth always has the line.
Do you know what she's going to have in the booth?
I think she's going to have, she usually does fry bread and Indian tacos.
Wow.
She usually does wild rice. Sometimes she'll do either turkey or chicken with traditional, native dressings and seasonings, corn, wild rice with cranberry and walnuts. She does amazing stuff.
Oh my goodness, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And if I'm hungry and I'm at the Odenong Powwow on Saturday or Sunday this weekend at Amherst Pelham Regional, I can have that void filled by James Beard award-winning chef Sherry Pocknett, an elder in the Mashpee Wampanoag.
I mean, this is a community coming together to put this on, and there's a community of organizations that are helping you put it on too, like the Seed Project and a lot of cultural councils, and you've even got a thing going on with the Eric Carle Museum where you can also go to the Carle if you come to the powwow.
And there's an exhibit of Indigenous art there as well, right?
Yes. We are blessed to be working with the Eric Carle Museum of Picture Book Art. I was sort of lucky to be able to attend. They had a native forum for an exhibit that's up now called Entwined Memories. And it's an exhibition of children's books that are authored and or illustrated by native authors. They have a dedicated room for the exhibit. That ends in June of this year, 2026. And then in January 2027, they have another exhibit coming up called The Precious Things We Share, Past, Present, and Future of Indigenous Picture Book Art. And that's sort of a survey of Indigenous art from like cave paintings to graphic novels.
So cool.
If only we knew somebody with a baby who was of Indigenous origin that we could go through that exhibit with when it happens in January, and by then might be just the perfect age to be looking at picture books.
And
I'm talking to you, Bear and Kara and Baby Bear.
Right?
What was that?
A native baby would be awesome for that.
Yeah,
right?
Baby Bear. This is our friends that are also part of Odenong Powwow that were maybe going to come here today and bring their baby for me to meet them the first time.
Are you also speaking this into the universe
Yes.
so that you can go to see the new exhibit with Baby Bear?
Yes.
Okay.
During the powwow weekend, during this weekend, if you bring a copy of the program from the powwow to the Carle, you get into the Carle for free.
That's awesome.
And that's part of the partnership that we're working out with them. And they've been absolutely amazing. I mean, to have the exhibit that they're having, there's not really anybody doing something like that. And they have made a concerted effort to connect with the local Native community around these things. So it's really cool. They've been very gracious in their support. There's sometimes you have to hash things out because the organization does a thing the way they do things, and Native folks do the things the way they do things. And trying to find that middle ground sometimes can be complicated, but it's been a relatively easy process. Alexandra de Montchard is the director of operations that I've been working with from there, and Sandy Soderberg, who's like their community engagement person. And they've just been an absolute pleasure to work with on this stuff.
In addition to the importance of having picture books of Indigenous people, because there aren't a lot of them by or depicting folks of Native origin in the same way that there aren't of like a lot of other ethnic minorities. As someone likes to say, there's more picture books of like animals than there are of people of color generally. And
hopefully we're changing that balance a little bit.
I agree, right?
One book at a time.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. One of the things that this opportunity to visit the exhibit represents is it may inspire someone. It might inspire a young person to say, oh, well, this is something that I can do too. Or I got this book there and I loved it, and it becomes part of their lifelong love of, picture books or writing or drawing. When we're young, we do need to see somebody do something. It might be something that we want to do already, but we've never seen anybody do it, so we're not sure if we can too.
Yeah.
And so with an exhibit like this, I think that represents an opportunity for young folks to know that this is something that you could do in the future.
And representation matters. You got to see it yourself to believe yourself. You know?
Agreed.
Yeah, and it immediately squashes the indigenous people no longer exist question
Totally.
and conversation. These are living authors. These are living illustrators.
We got to debut a living author children's book from indigenous folks from our friend Larry Spotted Crow Man from the Nipmuc right here on this show.
Indeed. And so, like, not just seeing yourself, but having other people see you means that those conversations don't necessarily have to come up later in the same way either.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think it's important in also when a member of a group is writing about their experiences of that group, it also represents the opportunity for the person or people from that group to control to some extent how they're seen.
Yeah.
Right? I want you to see me as I am, not as someone else perceives me, and then you're getting second and third layer deciphering of what it means. So,
which has been exciting to see, like directors like Sterling Harjo making all these television shows, et cetera, and being able to tell more indigenous stories in popular mediums, and then more people get exposure to that, and it helps to dispel some of the hurtful narratives.
Yeah, and I think a cool thing about that also is, at this point, not every Native character needs to have that be their whole identity.
Yeah.
Right? They're the Native person who just happens to be, it's a detective who happens to be Native.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think about, was it Law and Order, I think, that had Adam Beach who played a detective.
Yeah.
And he was Native, and it was very obviously Native, and that was part of his deal.
Hawk from Twin Peaks, my absolute favorite.
Right. Great show. But it was a portion of who they are, but they're fleshed out as a person.
Yes.
And not just something that's part of a backdrop. And so, the books and people coming to the powwow, they get to see that too, because you may say, oh man, like that's my podiatrist over there in full regalia. Like, wait a minute, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Or, you might have assumed, you had a little conversation, oh yeah, I'm Native, blah, blah, blah. But to see people actively participating, modern people actively participating, it does help people shift their thinking a bit.
We've talked to you about this every year of our show, which is really exciting. But it seems like Amherst Pelham Regional is now your home because you were in a couple of other locations. How's it been like having this celebration there?
It's been a blessing having a location that has so many of the things that we were looking for in a location, right? Aside from space, parking, ease of access, bathrooms and things like that are accessible, disability accessible, and that it's been a consistent space. If people just know, that weekend, go there. They don't have to worry about it. They don't have to go, wait, it's someplace new. Am I going to find it? And they've been very gracious in allowing us to use the space. Over the past year and this year, we're at that point where, like, kind of at the tipping point, we're almost a little too big for the space. So we do need to start considering going forward what that looks like. But it's been difficult, as I was saying to Monty earlier, the economic situation and financial situation has changed so dramatically that the funding and what's available is just, the landscape just looks terribly different. But we do rely on the community, and it cost money to do things because this is America and it's a capitalist society. We've been able to build some really cool relationships. Like I said, the Eric Carle Museum, Ancestral Bridges, the Universalist Unitarian Society of Amherst, they did a wonderful thing for us where they took half of their dedicated offerings for the month of April and donated it to the powwow.
I also love that it's the cultural councils of Amherst, Deerfield, Hadley, Hatfield, Pelham, South Hadley, and Whately. I mean, I don't know of many other events that get so much support from all of the different towns and their cultural councils.
The towns are coming together just like the tribes are coming together.
Yeah, that's true.
To be in community.
It's an incredible thing, right? We were surprised and grateful. I mean, and some of these folks have given us support over the years.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, Amherst has been integral, right? But South Hadley and Deerfield, Whately gave last year and this year. It's really like one of those things that kind of makes me go, wow, people do get it when you see a cross-section like that.
Yeah.
that people understand what we're doing and how this is really for the community. It's not just for Native folks. It's Native centered, but it really is a community event. I'm really appreciative that we've had all of these wonderful organizations and institutions and individuals contribute.
It is the 6th annual Odenong Powwow. It is happening this Saturday and Sunday, May 23rd and 24th in the gym at Amherst Pelham Regional High School.
And there will be Baby Bear there.
Oh, I got to go to my own baby's graduation this weekend. So if we get back in time, maybe I'll be able to go there on Sunday.
I'll make sure we get some pictures at the very
Yeah,
least.
and make sure you save some food from Sherry Pocknet as well. The James
do
Beard
that
Award.
too.
Justin Beatty, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you both for having me, and thank you for the continued support.
And if people want to support the Odenong Powwow, how do they do it? Because, like, as you mentioned, it's free to attend, but it's not free to make.
Right. If you go to odenongpowwow.org, there is a donate button. It will take you to our Give Butter campaign. Give Butter is a crowdfunding, kind of like GoFundMe, but it's specifically for nonprofits. They don't take any money out of it. Like, they have their own funding to be able to run this site. So we get all of that money that's donated. At the powwow, we do accept donations. We have a little jar and people can put money in. But then if you do things like if you buy raffle tickets, if you buy T-shirts, all that stuff goes to support them.
Wait, what's getting
Or you can just walk up and hand me a wad of cash. I'm okay with that.
Like, everyone's okay with that. What's getting raffled off at the raffle?
Oh, so we have a ton of stuff. So generally, every booth donates one item. So we'll have earrings, necklaces, artwork. We have the Mead Museum is donating a copy of
Boundless book?
Right?
Oh, cool.
Signed copy. A bunch of us who are involved in that exhibit are going to sign. We'll be raffling off T-shirts. We'll be raffling off all kinds of stuff. So beadwork and jewelry. And I say, come to the powwow, do what I do, right? I buy something for somebody who I know, like, we can't stand each other, and I just hand it to them and walk away and don't say anything, and then they just have to live with that in their head and wonder what it's all about.
Good strategy, Justin Beatty.
Thank you. And again, thank you both for having me.
Anytime. And now we go hang out with some of my favorite animals and Lisa Fortin, who's turning fleeces into yarns of all types and shades and your children into skilled crafters of all disciplines at Growing a Bunch Farm in Ashfield. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Time for another Local Hero Spotlight with Claire Morneau from CISA, the Local Hero folks. And this is going to be a Local Hero segment that has full disclosures up the wazoo about personal connections.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
And what's the name of this farm?
Growing a Bunch Farm in Ashfield.
We're in a barn with a bunch of wool in banana
It's
boxes.
fleece right now. It's not wool. It's not like wool yet.
What's the difference between fleece and wool?
Well, we call it fleece when it's just come off the sheep. So it's fleece or it's wool right now in this state in the banana boxes. But later it will be transformed into yarn.
Which
And
is
then-
also still wool.
Yes.
It is still wool. And after that, it goes into sweaters, hats, socks, shawls.
Tell us what you do here at this farm.
Well, what I do here at this small farm / homestead, my tagline has always been growing a bunch of children, veggies, flowers, and wool.
This is where the full disclosure comes in. I know all of your children very well. You are also a grandma now.
I am. Yes.
And I've met your grandbaby as well.
Yes.
Our kids have homeschooled together. Talk about the homesteading aspect of it.
Well, the homesteading was my reaction to my previous New York City life. When I moved here, first to Conway and then eventually to Ashfield, I just wanted out of the city. I was done with that environment. I had 3 little kids at the time, and we got chickens 3 days after we moved. And it's, we never looked back. So about a year after we started with the gateway animal of chickens, we moved right on to sheep. And we've had as many as 8 sheep at our farm, so we're not huge. But we love our sheep. And now we're down to just our 5 original sheep that we started with. They're Shetlands, and they make beautiful wool and fleece. And so we shear them every year, or rather I have them shorn. And a few years ago, I started to make some yarn from our own sheep wool. But during COVID, I discovered I love what I'm doing. I love knitting. It's such good, like restorative, relaxing. My children have these beautiful garments that are domestic and local and organic. And so I started looking around for more wool from other local farms. And that's where I found Brad from Four Blessings Farm in Leverett, Mass. He has a beautiful flock of sheep there. He's a weaver and he was no longer using his wool to weave. And so I've been buying his wool since actually I went back to the 2019 fleeces that he was storing. And I've been buying it every year. He does about 17 or 18 lambs, and then he does about 20 full-grown sheep in the spring. And so I've got his lamb's wool and his full-grown sheep wool here, and soon I'm about to start skirting it.
What does skirting it mean?
Well, I can show you that.
Let's go do it.
Yardage-wise,
Right.
how much are you getting for each one of your sheep?
Right. Okay. So really rough math would be if my sheep have a fleece that is about 7 pounds. After skirting and washing at the mill, it might only weigh 5 pounds. And roughly 5 pounds of the small 2-ounce skeins that I make would make 8 skeins per pound, so 40. So that's a sweater's quantity by far. I mean, it's actually a couple sweaters and a couple hats.
That's two
yeah,
sweaters.
you know, yeah. So even my small flock makes a good amount of wool, but when you add in Brad's 40 fleeces, and I also buy from Lonnie York at York Farm in Shelburne. I buy from a couple of shearers, a local farm down the hill in Ashfield. Now I found some wool in Coleraine Heath up there. So I get it from wherever I can, as long as it's nice enough that I can make it into a nice yarn. That's what I do with it. That's my first choice. I also make some products from the waste wool. So when we do the skirting, the leftovers, the coarse wool can be made into things like sponges, dishcloths, felt for crafting. And I also make something that I call woolly fill, which if you're a crafter and you know polyfill, then this is the wool local New England alternative to that. And then we also, I can show you this as well, we also make wool pellets. Now that's good for the wool that hasn't even been washed and has like super poopy, still has hay in there. It goes to the pelletizer that it lives in a barn in Shelburne at Peggy Hart's farm. And the way we got it, the members of Western Mass Fiber Shed worked together, particularly Peggy and Michelle, to get a grant from the larger Fiber Shed organization that's based out in California. We got some grant money and ordered this pelletizer. So now we can put our old poopy, hay-filled, dirty wool into the pelletizer. Out pops the little pellets that look like a chicken feed, and that's a good soil amendment. We've had it analyzed at UMass. It has a nice like high nitrogen content and other breakdown of good minerals.
And you just put it on your gardens and it just goes
mix
in,
it in
or does
your-
and does it dissolve, or what does it do?
It does. So it dissolves slowly over time. They also help hold moisture. They deter pests like slugs if they're placed on the surface around the base of the plant. And they help to aerate like heavy clay soil.
So we are at Growing a Bunch Farm in Ashfield with Lisa Fortin and Claire Morneau from CISA, and we're standing in front of a large wood frame with some wire mesh in between it. This is where the skirting happens, I'm assuming?
It does, yes. So one by one, I dig into my fleeces that are either in
What's up, Willow?
contractor bags, paper bags, or in Brad's case, banana boxes.
It looks like you're pulling a whole bear, or
Well,
I guess in this case
do
a
you wanna
sheep,
touch it?
out of a plastic bag.
This is the fleece of our Coco.
Fresh fleeces.
Coco Chanel is her name. Now, she's actually getting, all of my sheep are on the older side, but if you feel, this is still lovely fleece. And it goes into a yarn I call yearling. It was our first yarn. And this is something that when kids come to our summer workshops, we will show them the whole sheep to, say, sweater process. And we will start with the skirting and we will pick out all of these little bits of hay.
Hey,
Yes. And then what we pick out is these little short bits. These are actually little bits of lanolin that are all stuck together with dirt.
what's lanolin?
Oh, lanolin is like the sebum from the sheep. It's wonderful.
What's
for your-
sebum?
It's like the oily stuff. You don't want too much of it on your face, but on your hands.
I don't want any sebum on my face.
on your hands. The lanolin is quite nice.
For people who have dreadlocks or like natural hair, often lanolin is used as part of hair care components to keep moisture in your hair and in your locks.
Grab some.
Wait, of this?
This one hasn't been pure.
It needs to be pure. It needs to be washed and purified.
Oh, all
There's
right.
Exactly.
Because it does
Poor
smell very
process.
sheepy right now.
It does smell sheepy. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But you can buy pure lanolin in the store, and it's wonderful, like on your lips or chapped, fingers or something like that. Yeah, it really is.
The years of breastfeeding with my
Yes.
wife alongside you and all your kids, lanolin came up an awful lot.
It's very healing, and it makes a nice barrier.
So this is a sheep's wool that has been shorn, but the sheep is still alive, right?
Oh,
So how
yes.
does this all stick together like this? Well, how come
It is
if you
just-
cut somebody's hair, it comes off in big clumps? It doesn't
Right.
stick together in
I don't know.
one giant piece.
I
But
think
it can. It really
I guess if
depends.
it's kind of like it's dreadlocked
Well, like,
wool, right?
oil.
Well, it's not because it comes apart very easily. It's just held together by the crimp, I think, in the lanolin. Yep, it's just clinging to itself. But it's so pretty. We have white as well, and we have this beautiful dark fleece.
Ooh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's lovely.
I love
Look at
that.
Marveling at how long the hair is.
staple
Yeah,
Yes.
which makes part of what makes Shetland so fun to knit with. All of that softness that you feel now stays after it's been combed, after it's been like milled, and it's so fun to work with.
Yep, and it gives it a nice drapey quality, the fact that it's longer, as opposed to shorter staples, which are very lofty and puffy and kind of like bloom.
You have all of these potential products you can make from wool like this. What are you actually doing yourself by hand? What are you doing in partnership with other businesses?
Right. A lot of times people say, "Oh, you spin all that wool," when they see me at a market and I've got hundreds, if not 1,000 skeins behind me. I couldn't possibly hand spin, and I have great respect for hand spinners. I love hand spun fibers and yarns, but it's just I wanted to make more. I wanted to be a little bit bigger so that people can have an actual real product in larger quantity that's start to finish made in New England. I should include New York because one of the mills I use is over the line in New York State. And hand spun is wonderful, but I can't make that much quantity. So I wanted to take this local resource that really was, I think, being underused. I don't just make 1 or 2 yarns, but from each of the farms I work with and each of the batches of wool I get, they're all very different. I make very different yarns from very skinny yarns called fingering weight that you can use for socks or, lightweight tops for the more like summer or something. Actually, like what I'm wearing is lighter.
You're wearing a tank top, like a wool knit tank top.
Yes, it has bees on it.
Oh, nice.
I love it.
We just visited the bees last week.
Knitted into it with
Yeah.
beads. Yes.
Bees and beads. Did you knit that and put the bees in
I
there?
did.
Yeah.
It's not my design. You can find those online. Thousands and thousands, hundreds and thousands of online patterns. Yeah, so anyway, I go to 5 different mills and they each make very different yarns. And so people can make themselves and their family and, members all sorts of different products from our yarn.
Can you talk about the mills a little bit? Because I feel like mills for fiber, or for like people who are growing sheep and like alpacas, other things for like fiber and fiber crafts, mills are one of those bottlenecks that ends up happening, much like processing for meat animals. And I don't think that people necessarily realize how much of a bottleneck it is to try and get your fibers processed in this area.
That is true, and that's one of the benefits of using multiple mills. So I do use Bartlett in Harmony, Maine. They're one of the oldest mills in the country. They make a very hardy yarn. I think of it as like a vintage yarn, like you could do vintage 70s, 80s look sweaters and cardigans with color work. I use them. And of course, Green Mountain Spinnery, which is about an hour away in Putney, Vermont. I mean, they're wonderful, and they do a process called woolen spun. So their yarns are fluffy and lofty and warm. I use Battenkill Fiber Mill over the border in New York State in Greenwich. They make wonderful, I think of them as more thinner, delicate, lighter yarns because they're a worsted spinning mill. Worsted is more like your smart wool type of wool, although that's super
That seems like bested
so
to
not
me.
really.
I think it shouldn't be called worsted. I mean, smart wool is good.
That's an old school term. That's not my term.
Smart wool is a better marketing thing than calling it. You want these worsted socks I've ever had?
You have fingering and then DK.
Also, don't want to comment on that.
Sport to
DK Sport, and then worsted, heavy worsted, and then chunky, and then super chunky.
And then even a rug yarn.
Some pulp.
Yeah,
Like
and
this.
rug yarn.
Yep. So worsted can mean
Throwing terms out there.
worsted can mean either the style of spinning, where the yarn is combed very smoothly and all the fibers are combed until they're parallel to one another and then they're spun, or it can refer to the size of the yarn itself. So worsted is sort of a regular or average size, not too big, not too small.
So we're at Growing a Bunch Farm in Ashfield with Lisa Fortin and Claire Morneau from CISA. I see you've got a sheep barn over there. Is that where your naked sheep are because they have now been shorn?
And they're hot. Yeah, they're hot. They were shorn Sunday morning, so we're definitely going to go over and say hi, but they're going to be a little shy because they just got.
I'd be shy too if I were naked.
They got their hair cut. It's a gentle process for them, really, but they don't like it. It requires a stranger to come and grab them, and he sits them on their bottoms, because in that position, then they can't escape, and they sort of just relent and give up. It takes probably less than 5 minutes for each one to get shorn. At the same time, he'll take a good look at their hooves, which I can't always do, and he'll make sure they don't need to be trimmed and that they're looking good. You can compare it to your kid's yearly doctor's appointment combined with a haircut.
Or like Enzo is the only one in the family who's brave enough to cut our cat's nails. Where the cats do not want that to happen. He just grabs them assertively and then cuts all their nails.
Exactly. And it's we know better, but they don't understand that. So
Can you talk about the difference between the wool you get from lambs and the wool you get from full-grown sheep?
yeah, so generally the wool you get from lambs is just going to be a little softer, just like a baby's skin is a little softer than an adult's skin texture. It also sometimes is a little bit fluffier, but it's very soft. And I do have a yarn that I make from just lamb's wool. I'll say because they're part of CISA, I get that wool from Leiden Glen. They have wonderful flock. They shear, when we're there, sometimes there's like maybe close to 200 sheep being shorn. There's usually 4 shearers there working the whole day. And I collect the softest lamb's wool I can find because I always wanted to work with that farm, because Kristen Nicholas is a famous knitwear designer from back in the day. She's like the OG of...
She's like a rock star of knitting,
Yes,
and she's
she is.
from Leiden, yeah.
Exactly. And she's also an amazing artist and potter. Definitely look her up. But I wanted to have that connection to their farm. And when I talked to her, she said, well, we have meat sheep now, and there's coarser fiber. But then she got back in touch with me and said, but what about if we use the lamb's wool? I said, yes. And that goes into my yarn that I call Babe.
Sometimes you can get Leiden Glen lamb burgers at certain restaurants in the area too. Mwah, chef's kiss, and a big shout out to Kristen and Julia and all those folks there.
Can I mention one more mill?
Yeah.
Okay. I've also started working with the new mill in East Hampton. That's in Eastworks, Alchemy. Yep, and they've been wonderful. So I've done one batch there with Melinda, and I plan to do more.
Should we meet your naked sheep?
Yes. Okay, let me make sure the fence is off.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Lisa, you did not grow up farming, but you did kind of grow up here.
I did. I grew up down in the valley in Chicopee, so pretty suburban. I didn't have any real exposure to farm life. Definitely dreamt of going to the big city, and I did that when I was about 20 and was there for 17 years. But once I started having kids and grew up a little bit, I knew I wanted to come back, be closer to my family, and have a little bit of a farm life for my kids. There's so much reward in it, I think, for kids growing up.
And now your kids are taking that on themselves as well, right?
A little bit. It depends which kid you mean.
Well, yeah, Clara, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Clara, Zinnia is like my chicken extraordinaire lady now.
Coming out to say hi.
Yeah, hi girls. And Willow too enjoys a lot of aspects of this. And then I have my artist, punk rock.
She's fully goth, and I fully support it.
Yeah, well, that gets me back because that was me when I was that age. So
And she'll be graduating this weekend.
yeah, she is. Hi girls, someone's missing. We can go over the fence.
Okay. This is when we get to test our flexibility.
This is when I regret wearing a dress.
We'll avert our eyes, Claire. Do they wag their tails like dogs when they're happy?
When they're happy or when they poop.
Oh. Well, I know that makes me happy, so what are your sheep names?
This is Coco Chanel right in the front.
Beautiful.
The black lady is Freya. The next lady came with the name Elizabeth, but I added on Elizabeth Taylor.
Nice.
And then Dora and Dana.
I guess I'm allergic to sheep.
How terrible
I
for
know.
you.
I don't think I am.
No, because you wore that nice purple sweater.
Well,
You're
speaking of
definitely-
which, it's in the car.
Oh, nice.
That is the other full disclosure. Khalees is wearing the March for the Food Bank shirt that has a PBS style logo on it. But when I said I wanted to dress up as Mr. Rogers for the Food Bank March last year, a bunch of local folks in the wool and the fabric community got together, including Swanson's Fabrics and Northampton Wools, to make me a Mr. Rogers sweater. And Lisa Fortin here at this farm is the one who dyed the wool for that sweater. And it was your sheep's wool part of that?
No.
Okay, but I want to keep that mythology going. But you did dye the wool.
I did dye the wool. Yep, that wool came from a fancy gentleman farm in Rhode Island where the sheep were just...
That makes me like it even more. Fancy gentleman farm.
Yep, this is how it was described to me. I actually don't know where it came from exactly, but this is from the shearer. It was a lovely flock of merinos that were mostly used to keep the grass down and as sort of like lawn ornaments. I mean this in the best sense. I mean, what a wonderful way to trim your lawn.
Yeah.
Is anyone nearby growing Like, I didn't know that anyone was raising merinos here.
That's why, even though I'm based in Western Mass, when I found a shearer who said, I've got this merino that's not being used, do you want it? For a very good price, actually. I said, absolutely.
Merino that's not being used.
Yes, I know. And then I don't have access to that anymore. So what you had was almost some of the last of that.
Merino wool is unbelievably soft to work with, and it's got unbelievable drape. It's shiny, it's fantastic. It's like the cashmere of wools.
Yeah, I would be wearing the sweater right now, and I will put it on for photo opportunities, but it's too hot to wear. That's right. Yeah.
It is much too hot
Yeah.
for that.
When you are selling finished yarns and wools for people to knit with and work with, you do it under Bloom Woolen Yarns, right? But we are at Growing a Bunch Farm. So can you talk a little bit about your two businesses and how they interact?
Right. So Growing a Bunch was just the seed of what became Bloom Woolen Yarns because it started with these sheep. But the other half of Growing a Bunch Farm is my summer programming that I do for kids. And so we have a couple programs each summer. We do a sewing workshop and a general fiber arts workshop. For fiber arts, they will learn or practice embroidery, knitting, crochet, weaving, spinning, and we will go through that sheep to shawl or sheep to sweater experience. They'll dye some wool, and we'll also do needle felting and wet felting are huge hits. And we go on pasture walks and we get them out and we do yard games. And so that's the fiber arts workshop. And then we also added on about 5 years ago a sewing workshop. My two older daughters, who are now a young mom and a graduating homeschooling senior this year, they started with me helping with the programs 9 years ago, but they at the same time were learning how to sew at a 4-H group in Shelburne with Lonnie York, who owns York Farm, whose wool I also turn into yarn. And they have become excellent sewists. And so we took their skills and my sort of more mediocre beginner sewing skills. And 'cause at this point, they can make corsets and quilts and costumes and all kinds of really elaborate things that I can't do. And we started the sewing workshop.
That's amazing. Are there still spots available for this summer?
Only probably about 2 spots in the sewing workshop. Yeah, the other is definitely full. And that's the make your own outfit in a week, or you can make a quilt for kids that just like to sew. You can make your Halloween costume, and historical garb has always been a big hit as well.
You also, tapping into your goth side, have taught my child how to make chainmail.
Oh yes, there's a lot of 10 to 14-year-olds in the valley that are wearing chainmail bracelets. Those probably were taught by me and made by them.
Maybe we underestimate what kids are capable of when it comes to these sorts of skills. I'm curious if that's been your experience.
Oh yeah, they astound me. The projects they make are gorgeous and they work really hard and diligently. The fiber arts workshop, there'll be times where it's silent and all you hear is the needle felting. 10 kids needle felting, and then the sewing machines are going, and a lot of times I can't get them to stop for lunch. They're so committed and they're so into their projects. So I really love it.
Why did you want to share those skills with other kids who weren't your own? Opening this up to a wider range of kids who will take those skills with them is an entirely different avenue.
Right, and that's the key. Hopefully they take the skills with them. There's so much value in learning knitting and sewing and mending, and so there's the joy in it. There's the restorative aspect of being able to sit down at the end of a hectic day and focus quietly. And when kids have handcraft tools in their hands, they do not have a phone in their hand. You know, the first things people ever made in history other than shelter was clothing. So this is an integral part of being a human. And then they have the understanding of where our clothing comes from, just like we want them to know where our food comes from. The next extension of that is, where does our clothing come from? Or I like to say, who grew your sweater? As you know, any seed that's planted in childhood, they could put it down for 10 years and then pick it back up at 25, and there you go. The seed has been planted.
That's how my knitting generally goes.
Yeah, I learned how to crochet when I was like 18, and I could probably do it again.
So I'm sure. Many half-finished projects in my basement.
And I like to know that I know who grew my sweater. Some fancy gentleman in Rhode Island, but it was dyed right here in Asheville by my friend Lisa.
I mean, it feels a little bit too on theme.
I can't wait to be a fancy gentleman farmer myself.
What other types of wool are you getting besides the Shetland and apparently not merino anymore? But like, not everybody's growing Shetlands.
I mean, I could show you.
Sure.
I don't know if that helps with
Yeah.
Yeah, we take
It helps us
pictures.
understand it better.
Yeah.
Bye, sheep.
We could step into my studio and then I can show you a little bit.
Sure.
More.
Sorry.
I didn't know you were a knitter. This is amazing.
Yeah. From for the same reasons. Like my mom taught me
Nice.
really, really young, and so I've been knitting since I was like 5 or 6.
Oh, that's amazing.
So like off and on as
What do
you
you like to knit?
I like to knit hats because I can do a hat in a day, but I also like sweaters, which is why there's so many half-finished things. Like, I always want sweaters, and I never finish sweaters for myself. I just finish sweaters for other people.
Aww.
So, like, my sisters have, like, a couple of piece, and, like, my dad has one, but, like, the sweaters I've made for me are all half-finished in the basement, like, still on circulars.
Summer projects?
Well, depending on what I'm using.
Yeah, right. I know if it's too heavy.
Yeah.
That's why I like to make sometimes socks in the summertime. So here's a really
across your lap, like it's not like
exactly.
sweater.
No Afghans at the beach.
And especially if you're using like magic loop for sweaters instead of using double pointeds, which is what I've moved to exclusively because I'm bad at double pointeds. Everything just slides right off and then I have to start over. It goes really quickly. It makes it so much easier to turn heels and make toes. It's so nice.
That's your free knitting lesson.
Yeah. So this is your dyeing studio. And mudroom. There's buckets of what is that dye and water
So this is actually indigo rinse bucket, but I save it because there's valuable indigo that'll sink down to the bottom. This is my indigo vat. This is cochineal.
Cochineal's a little
It is
bug.
a little beetle.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Do you using the real beetle?
Oh yeah. I mean they're dead and they're imported. They're not like I'm not.
You don't go out in the woods and get them.
No, because they grow on agave.
So is it only natural dyes that you're using?
I also have an organic dye, which functions much like a traditional acid dye works, but it's got certified organic, and I use vinegar as the acid, so it's very safe. I'm dyeing in my kitchen still, and I have a couple of burners here, but mostly I'm in my kitchen, so it's got to be safe. One thing I can show you really easily is the difference between woolen spun yarns, which would be these guys, and this is what you want to wear in the winter. It's very warm. This is the yearling, so this is our sheep. Makes very different finished products. This is what I call like the hardiest. It's not like you're not going to make a tank top or a baby.
Feels a little rougher, maybe.
You're gonna put it. It's for layering.
Yeah,
warm.
and then you can contrast it with this, which is the fingering weight yarn, which is very silky, and this solstice, which is also very soft and silky and can make lighter garments, and that's like baby soft. This one is the one spun from Alchemy Fiber Mill. It's fin wool, very soft and lofty. These here that are soft and sort of shiny and glowing, those are made from Romney sheep that have Romney is so nice. It might be one of my
I mean,
favorites.
when you look back on it, totally.
Stop it.
Those were different times.
Here's like the last skein ever of that yarn that we made your sweater out of.
Oh, the merino wool.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
What is this? fuzzy.
So that's not local, not domestic. I order them as a sample because that is a cross of Suri alpaca, which is a unique kind of alpaca, with some silk. And this was made in South America. But I ordered it because I have access to a whole bunch of Suri alpaca and I want to make that kind of yarn. So I wanted to feel a couple different versions and think about how that might knit up and that kind of thing.
Where are you going to source your silk from?
You're really on it, yeah. So that would not be local. I would source it through our local mills, and it would be 20% silk. And I would contrast that to my other yarns by calling it Wanderlust. So it would be like a little special treat that you might add to your whole wardrobe of domestic and locally grown sweaters.
The irony to me, of course, being that like there are a lot of mulberry trees here. You can make silk from mulberry, and mulberry was brought in to feed bombyx moths.
Yeah.
In part. So like if somebody was like super enterprising.
I've always wondered if anyone's going to
with
get
a
back
lot of
into that.
time.
Yeah.
The dream of the 1890s is alive in Northampton.
Right. Well,
It's a Portlandia joke.
Yeah, everyone was knitting and sewing clothes for their children. People were wearing glasses all the time, like contact lenses had never been invented.
Wait, are we talking about the 1990s?
No. The 1890s.
The dream of the 90s is alive in Portland.
that is what's happening with, say, linen. I think maybe even hemp, but closer to being brought back would be flax and linen. So there's like some local people working on that. I know there's a lot of flax happening in Vermont and I believe Pennsylvania. So, and of course out in California, but more and more. We've got to bring these things back. That's the best way to avoid tariffs. Yeah, the problem with all of these local fibers is that we don't have the infrastructure to spin them anymore, because I think it was between like say 90 and 2005 or something, we lost like 80-90% of our machinery was literally shipped overseas. I think a lot probably went to China, but I think a lot of that went to the Middle East as well. And so I think people gave up on those industries, off everything went, and then right on the tail of that we have this resurgence of people wanting and appreciating this local product, and now we're kind of like don't have the machinery for it. So every time a new mill opens, it's one step in the right direction. But that is why you brought up the bottleneck at the mills. That's why I'm waiting a year for my yarn to be spun and come back to me.
Talk about your relationship with the Fiber Shed and what that's allowed for you to do, like with this business and other avenues that you might not have considered without their help.
Yeah, so Fiber Shed is doing great things by bringing awareness to all the fibers, but they do focus on wool. They have made cloth, which is extremely valuable, because if you're going to make clothing, you need cloth, not just yarn. And so Peggy Hart is weaving cloth and blankets. I have worked with them. I would like to work with them more. I am sort of loosely one of the organizational members, but I don't have the time to put in right now. Ironically, because, well, half the time it's my kids and the family and that whole thing. And then my business is really doing great and busy. And so I can't really put in the hours to spend as much time on that. But, there's more years of my life that I can devote to that.
Is this chainmail over here?
Told ya.
Not strictly related to wool, but
This is my mannequin usually is wearing this. That was part of my previous
And that's
life.
how you keep the peasants safe when the raiders come.
Yeah, that's a nice look.
It's a beautiful dress with now
It is
a
like
chainmail bra on it.
A handmade vintage indigo dyed dress with golden chainmail.
Back out to the barn.
You might notice that the barn does not look like a nice place to have a bunch of kids crafting. So my barn has pretty much 3 phases. Fall and winter, it's filled with 3-quart of firewood there and about 120 bales of hay on this side and up in the loft. Once the wood is gone, it's spring. I start collecting all my wool. I've probably got about 30, maybe 50 fleeces in here right now that I'll be skirting and driving off to the mills. And after that's gone, it's a complete transformation. All the large doors are opened, it's airy, it's cleaned up, it's no longer dangerous, and all the craft goodies come out.
Where does this battery go?
That's the electric fence.
I know,
Oh.
but when the kids are in here crafting, does it stay there?
So it does, but it's not turned on.
Great.
What happens if I touch these two things?
No, stop.
You get electrocuted. Ask me how I know. No, the sheep fence. The sheep are trained well enough to the fence that when kids are here working and running around, then I just turn it off, and it's fine.
Our focus has largely been on the farm, but I'm curious where people can find your yarn.
So the yarn is at bloomwoolanyarns.com, and then the kids' programming is at growingabunchfarm.com. Thanks.
And then are you at farmers markets or anything else like that?
I don't do farmers markets. I do fiber festivals, and
Is there one?
are
There's one coming up
huge.
soon, right?
Yes. So we have Mass Sheep and Wool 50th year, and sadly the last one. It's like the end of an era.
Wow.
I know. So that's going to be this upcoming weekend at the Cummington Fairgrounds.
And this is the last one.
It is the last one. So
Wow.
come and support.
We talked to them about it last year.
Or the year before, I don't remember, but
last
was
year.
it? Yeah.
I think it's been maybe brewing. I don't know if there's any hope. There's a couple murmurs, people who are saying, I don't know, is it too late? Can we save it? I don't know.
But it's another thing where like the older people who are raising sheep for wool started this in the 50s, late 60s, and they are too old to keep organizing this every year, and there hasn't been anyone to come up behind them and really take it over.
Maybe Mass Sheep and Wool should team up with Hampshire College and save each other.
That feels weird.
I don't know how that will work.
Are you at the New England one at the Big E
I am.
in November?
I am, and that one is
love that
amazing.
one.
So much fun because it's got so much fiber and it's got the animals.
I have re-entered with the merino wool sweater from the fancy gentleman wool that was dyed by Lisa.
What was this dyed with?
Because it's a beautiful kind of lavender, almost purple.
I dyed it with the GOT certified organic dye. Yeah.
Was Mr. Rogers famous for purple?
No, he had all sorts of different colors. My wife loves purple, so I wanted a purple one. I also love purple. But what Mr. Rogers was famous for that not everybody knows is, do you know what I'm about to say?
That his mother knitted his sweaters.
That every one of the sweaters he wore in his show for all those years was knit by his own mom.
Yeah.
Oh my
So my moms of all of the community of Western Mass, and turns out some fancy gentlemen from Rhode Island, my daddy from Rhode Island, teamed up.
Your daddy from Rhode Island?
Teamed up to make this Mr. Rogers sweater for me.
Wow.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Just when you thought Mr. Rogers couldn't be more wholesome.
I know.
It's like, no, his mom
Right,
knit his
I
sweaters.
know.
Here I am making daddy jokes
much.
about it.
Those sweaters, she's not using anything that's heavier than worsted weight at
No,
most.
she doesn't. In fact, this is worsted, but a lot of them are smaller. But of course, time was of the essence, to make the sweater
Well, I think
in
it's
time.
bested. And you can even actually, out of the CW Mars library system, get a book that has all of the different patterns for the Mr. Rogers sweaters if you wanted it one yourself.
Wow. I'm learning so much.
And they have zippers.
Yeah.
She liked to use zippers and not buttons.
Let's make the most of this. Oh, hold on. Hold on to the bottom of the sweater so I can do it. Beautiful day. That was more teamwork. Okay, I'm taking this off now because
Yes.
it's wicked hot. Well, thanks for showing us around the farm.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.
And even though we didn't get to talk about it with Lisa Fortin there, Lisa Fortin grows a lot of the plants that she uses to dye the wool for Bloomin' Woolens, indigo, marigold, dahlias, and cosmos, and also gets onion skins for dyeing from Long River Produce Market in Deerfield, which is wicked cool. And if you are into yarn, Bloomin' Woolens also has a CSA where every 2 months they send you a pound of yarn. And if you are into crafting of any sort that involves fiber, you understand that a pound of yarn is a lot of yardage. That you can probably get a good sweater maybe and a half out of that much yarn. So check out their website, bloomwoolanyarns.com, for more information on that. Having a constant year supply of yarn, that seems like a really great thing. And there's different colorways for it too. So if you've got a couple of projects going or are looking for something new to kind of inspire, it seems like a really good thing to do. Different weights, different colors, different ways to experiment, all wicked cool things. And thanks again to Lisa Fortin for letting me hang out with your sheep who were definitely very afraid of me. Alas, I love them so. On the next Fabulous 413, we meet winemaker Kate Norris of Division Wines from the Pacific Northwest and hear more about one of the U.S.'s most interesting regions from someone working within it. We'll also explore regionalisms with word nerd Emily Brewster, who's from Pittsburgh herself, so she's one of those Yinzers. And we will push our soda agenda against those who follow the pop and Coke ethos, shall we say. Plus live music Friday with Sophia St. Helen and Michael Lesko, who will play at the Parlor Room on Saturday. I'm Khalees Smith. See you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.